Hello, welcome to this video. As the examination season begins, I'll be doing a recap of each topic area, as many as I can, and I will try and keep it as brief as possible. In terms of going through theory, as well as some sample questions. Those areas which are relatively straightforward, I will do a very quick run through the main concepts and theory and knowledge. And those areas which I think needs more focus on, more time will be spent on that. So just to get started off with, section 3.1, this is the introductory section of AQA. I've just gone through a couple of questions that have been tested on this particular area. I've written down the key points and I'll just do a quick run through this and show you those two questions which you can refer to. So this topic area is new for the AQA 7127 spec. Previously with the ACCN papers prior to 2018, AQA wouldn't commonly test this particular area, and they've introduced it in the new spec 7127 right at the top, right at the start of the spec, which obviously makes sense. And they have tested this question twice. They've tested it once they've put it into the sample paper and they've also put it into a 2020 paper as well. Okay, so it has come up twice. There is chance of it coming up again because they want students to become aware of the difference between bookkeepers, ledger clerks and accountants. Okay, so to the left you've got bookkeepers, ledger clerks, they are also known as. What is the difference between the two? So if you work, there's two areas you can work in terms of the accounting sector. You can either work in industry or you can work in practice. When you work in industry, that basically means you're going to work for a business, okay, that maybe sells products or manufactures products, and you are the bookkeeper for them, or you are employed as the accountant, okay. So that's basically industry. Now, when you work in practice, you are working in an accounting organization, an accounting practice, an accounting firm. So someone like Deloitte or EY or KPMG, these are all examples of the accounting practice sector. Okay, so when you work in industry, what they tend to do is they have a choice. They can either employ their own bookkeeper that basically deals with the day-to-day entry, okay, the day-to-day data, the data entry, okay, the day-to-day transactions. We're talking about collating the source documents, the invoices, the credit notes, dealing with the bank statements, etc., dealing with the processing of day-to-day transactions. That's what a bookkeeper does, okay? If there's any day-to-day transactions dealing with in terms of cash book, so larger businesses tend to have people that specialize in the cash book field. They might have individuals that are allocated towards dealing with trade receivables, sales ledger control, and they might have individuals that are dealing that deal with the purchase ledger control and the trade payable sector. So you could argue that for bookkeepers or ledger clerks, it could be split into three different areas: cash book section. You've got the purchases section and the sales section that deal with credit transactions, okay? So combined, they all do pretty much the same thing: day-to-day transactions from a bank perspective or cash perspective, from a maintaining trade receivables, so they might be chasing customers, dealing with sales invoices, allocating credit notes. They might be chasing customers for payment, that's trade receivables. And then you have trade payables, and they obviously will be making sure suppliers are paid on time, making sure relations are good with suppliers, and making sure they are processing any invoices from suppliers. Okay, these are just some examples. But like I said, whichever area you work in, whether it's the general ledger, purchase ledger or sales ledger, you're basically dealing with data entry, day-to-day transactions, processing all of that data, making sure the control accounts are being reconciled, making sure there's no errors in the system, making sure people are being paid on time, customer balances are being paid, and making sure suppliers are paid on time as well. Okay, so this is the role of bookkeepers, and they pretty much do everything up to trial balance. Okay, you could link in verification, so in terms of dealing with potential errors. They could be doing the bank reconciliation, the reconciliation for control accounts. All of these section 3.4 verification is part of the role of bookkeepers and ledger clerks. Okay, now once they've done their part, then the work gets handed over to an accountant, which we have on the right hand side. Now what's the role of an accountant? They basically check over what the bookkeeper has done. Okay, now for an industry, so someone like Walker's Crisp, they could employ bookkeepers, and then what they could do is they could send everything over to externally an accountant. An accountant will carry out this responsibility. What they may do is they might even employ an accountant. So they have bookkeepers that do the low level type of work, and then the accountants do the more complex work. Okay, that's for industry. That's how industry is set up. Okay, now it could be that someone like Walker's might have bookkeepers internally, and then they send over the work externally, or they might have accountants. They might employ them themselves. So industry could employ both. Okay. What's more common is smaller businesses, medium-sized organizations, they will probably have their own bookkeepers. Then they have external accountants. Okay, regardless of how it tends to work, the work is done by the same role. The work doesn't change. So let's look over what an accountant does. They check over what the bookkeeper has done. They make sure the financial data is valid, it's verified. They obviously adhere to apply accounting concepts. They adhere to accounting standards. They carry out the more complex work. Now, the more complex work might involve providing advice to the directors. They might carry out any consultancy work, any financial decision-making, planning or control. Okay, so more the management area, making sure the business is receiving the right strategic direction. Okay, so more complex work. They will also obviously take on what the bookkeeper has done, and they will complete this task. So they will take the work from the trial balance, and they will then prepare financial statements. They might prepare the additional work, the notes to the accounts, okay, etc. So I've put a star there because the key role of an accountant is to do all of this, but it's also to prepare the accounts preparation, trial balance, taking that data and completing financial statements. And something that they will also do is, as part of their role in adhering and applying concepts and adhering to standards, is they will make sure the accounts reflect a true and fair view. Now, this is a key piece of information which accountants will sign off, and they will declare that these statements reflect a true and fair view. So that's very, very important there. Okay, so in summary, what we have here is bookkeeper's role and the role of the accountants. And bookkeepers tend to be cheaper. Okay, this is a key point there. And accountants, obviously, to employ them, it's more expensive. So that's a summary of section 3.1. Now, I did mention to you there are two questions that have been tested. I'll show you these two questions. So it's a relatively straightforward area, so I won't go into too much detail, but that's the first question. This question was from June 2020. It was from paper 1. And the question was, explain why a business might employ bookkeepers, but also use the services of a professional accountant. That is the question. 3 marks, grade descriptor. It's not, I mentioned 3 points, I get 3 marks. It's, this is my overall answer, and this is the grade level that it falls under. So if you have fragmented points, you get 1. If you have a partial explanation, but it lacks a bit of detail, you get 2. And if it's nice, clear, thorough explanation where you've answered the question, you get up to 3 marks. Okay, so a quick run through the answer. I'm not going to go through read the whole thing. I'll just point out the keywords here. So if you employ bookkeepers as well as an accountant, what sort of factors do you want to talk about? Bookkeepers do the most straightforward work. It's cost effective, it's cheaper. The accountant can oversee the work and make sure the work is checked over and it's accurate. What's the benefit of this? This will allow the accountants, sorry, I've got the lights on a sensor. Okay, so just have to wait for that to come back on. Very annoying. There we go. Okay, so yeah, going back to this, obviously by employing bookkeepers, it will allow accountants to complete other work, e.g. bookkeepers allow the basic bookkeeping work to be done internally, then they might recruit someone externally to complete the rest of the process. That will save money. So that's a summary of the 3 marker. You don't need to mention all of it, but I would personally mention in a 3 marker, this is the role of a bookkeeper, day-to-day transactions, cost effective. That work can then, up to trial balance, that can then be handed over to a professional accountant who can take it on from trial balance all the way till financial statement preparation, which is going to be more costly, and obviously the work is going to be more thorough, and they've got to make sure they comply with standards. Something along the lines of that would give you 3 marks. Okay. The other question is from the sample paper. So that's the question. Okay, it's a 6 marker. Explain using examples the difference between the role of the accountant and the role of the bookkeeper. Now, because it's 6 marks, you probably want to mention 1 paragraph the role of the accountant, 1 paragraph on the role of the bookkeeper, and keep it separate. Okay, to achieve the 6 marks. And it says just say using examples, so you've got to be a bit more specific. Okay, for a 3 marker, you probably don't need to go into that much detail. Okay, you probably just want to do a surface skim of the 2. But for a 6 marker, you do want to go into a bit more detail. That's the main difference between the 3 and the 6. Okay, in all honesty, the content's going to be very similar. It's the length of detail that you go in. Okay, so again, just quickly run through this because this is a slightly different mark scheme. So bookkeepers, day-to-day transactions, maintaining the business's records, entering transactions into day books and ledgers. So here they are actually being a bit more descriptive in terms of what do they actually do in the day, checking the accuracy of the bookkeeping. And then bookkeepers may support in preparation of financial statements, obviously up to trial balance. However, it's the accountant that's more responsible. They prepare financial statements. They make sure accounting concepts are adhered to. They ensure the financial statements reflect a true and fair view. And then obviously it mentions in there that bookkeepers in businesses, they do to an extent support the accountant in the role of in their role as well in terms of accounts preparation. So really, in summary, you've got all the content mentioned on there. You've got 2 examples that I've gone through with you. And like I said, for a 3-mark question, just a surface skim of the 2. But for a 6 marker, you want a clear paragraph on the role of the bookkeeper and the role of the accountant, giving examples, making sure your response is thorough, clear knowledge, understanding of accounting principles and concepts, meaning that you've actually explained what their role is. You've given some correct examples, okay, for both. And if you can do that, that will give you 6 marks. Okay, so like I said, in summary, it's a relatively new topic area for the 7127 specification, and my instinct is that AQA will introduce this throughout several years. So they are actually checking and challenging students' knowledge in terms of, do they actually know what the role of a bookkeeper is, and do they know what the role of the accountant is. If you want some more information about this, you can search up AAT. The AAT qualification is a bookkeeping qualification, and you can research about jobs that require AAT or the AAT qualification. And in terms of the accountant, you can look at ACA, you can also look at ACCA, or maybe even SEMA, which are those three boards. They are qualifications for accountants specializing in the financial sector or the management sector. Okay, I hope that's been beneficial for you, and do subscribe, keep an eye out on our videos. We'll have more to come in terms of getting ready for the upcoming summer examinations. Okay, thank you for watching, all the best.